With the popularity of the Suicide Squad second movie, DC decided to release some collected editions featuring some of those characters. So, take a look with me at each one of these trades. And welcome back, everybody. Now, due to popular demand, because a lot of you all wanted me to do overviews of these recent books, I decided to pick up all 5 of the Suicide Squad trade paperbacks that DC released. Probably due to the movie coming out, the second movie by James Gunn. So I'm going to be looking at each one of these and how they differ, and then just give my opinion on which one the best collection out of these 5 is for anybody that just wants to try out the Suicide Squad and what the stories are about. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll be looking at Case Files number 1. Now, I wanted to start with the Case Files, Volume 1 first, because they are interesting in the way that DC decided to collect the stories. And here's what the back looks like. So, Case Files works as a small dipping of your toes into the world of the Suicide Squad by showcasing either the first appearance of the characters that are in the movies or just some key issues that they were featured in. So either the debut or a key appearance of these characters. So here we have a collection of Superman number 170, number 4 and 170, Detective Comics number 300, Superboy number 9, The Fury of Firestorm number 38, Suicide Squad volume 4 number 25, Vigilante 36, and then Suicide Squad Amanda Waller. So this features characters like the first appearance of King Shark or Polka Dot Man, and then of course you have characters like Amanda Waller, Harley Quinn, and Peacemaker in here, just to name a few of the characters. And they are scattered about. It's one issue. It's an interesting collection, but this kind of, here, let me jump around a little bit. This kind of gives you an idea of what the comic book counterparts are to these characters. For example, this is the character of Bloodsport right here, making his appearance in John Byrne's Superman book. However, Bloodsport acts nothing like the way that this character does here in the comics. And that's one thing to keep in mind, and this is, I think, drawn by Humberto Ramos right here, with the King Shark fighting Superboy. Yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind. The comic book counterparts usually tend to be different than the movie counterparts. Sometimes that works for the better, and sometimes the movie counterparts may seem a little bit better. This is the Vigilante issue with the Peacemaker right here. And the Peacemaker makes an interesting appearance, and that's one thing that about these collections, I think that's a little on the negative side, is that a lot of these stories continue into the next story. So even though it's a small taste of a lot of these characters' first appearance or key issues that they appear in, this is, I think, is the one with the Thinker, you just want to keep reading more. That's what gets you, and then you don't know where to go, because it's not like they tell you at the end of this issue. For example, we'll use the character here of Weasel. They don't tell you where to keep reading the story of Weasel or the story of Mongal. Let me show you. It just ends, and it goes on to the next comic, which is Vigilante number 36. So let's look at the next case file here with Harley Quinn on the cover. And that's one thing I didn't mention, is that we do have some movie covers. And if you know anything about me, I'm not a big fan of live action movie covers. But if it's the only way that I can get collected editions, then I don't have a choice, do I? But here we have volume 2 with Harley Quinn. That's what the spine looks like, and then the back of the book. So this particular volume collects Suicide Squad 44, Secret Origins number 14, Detective Comics 585, Birds of Prey number 58, Batman Harley Quinn number 1, Green Lantern 174, and Booster Gold number 1. So this, again, key issues or just first appearances of these characters. So in here you're going to find stories about Captain Boomerang, Rick Flag, Ratcatcher, Savant, Javelin, Blackguard, and Harley Quinn. Just to name a few of the characters that you're going to find in here. And, like, for example, this isn't Captain Boomerang's first appearance, but it is a key issue. Actually, this story is pretty badass, because he was a big part of the Suicide Squad towards the beginning of the run of John Ostrander's run. But this issue right here kind of establishes the type of character that he is. And again, jumping all over the years, you're going to have stories here from the 80s, the early aughts, the rebirth run of Suicide Squad, the 90s. So the art is going to vary. So just keep that in mind. It is a collection, much like the Case Files Volume 1, of just different stories throughout the years featuring these characters. Here's the Ratcatcher. Now, the lady in the movie is the Ratcatcher 2, based on Ratcatcher's daughter from the comics, which, by the way, happened to be my favorite character. And I have to go to this issue right here because I love this era of Birds of Prey. And I was hoping one day we'd get a Birds of Prey omnibus. But this is Gail Simone and Ed Benes introducing this character of Savant that has kidnapped Black Canary and has taken out the Birds of Prey. And I really enjoy this time of the Birds of Prey. And the artwork and the story just kicked all kinds of ass, and it made me a huge fan of them. Don't get me wrong, Chuck Dixon's run on Birds of Prey was phenomenal. But that Ed Benes on that artwork was just top notch. Now, both books retail for $19.99. The first volume has 216 pages, and this volume here has 224. As far as the paper quality, it's this matte paper, so it's non-glossy paper. Next up is a collection called Their Greatest Shots. Another movie cover here, the spine, and then the back of the book. Now, I actually like this collection a little bit more because they go outside of first appearances and key issues to talk about some of the great stories that feature some of these characters. So in here you have Suicide Squad, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day, Suicide Squad number 10, which is a badass issue featuring Batman, and you get to find out more about Amanda Waller and the character of Rick Flag through this issue. I've really enjoyed this issue. Then you have Suicide Squad number 15 from the 2012 series, Suicide Squad number 22 from that same series, Rebirth number 1 of Suicide Squad number 16, Suicide Squad 20, 47, and War Crimes number 1. So we're again going through all over the years. 1987 to the new 52 Suicide Squad to the Rebirth era. But I think this collection works a little bit better than the previous collection. Just because it focuses on the characters and some of their strongest stories that could be just a one-off too. They don't continue into another storyline. They're not part of a big event. They are just standalone stories that showcases what these characters are like. This one here is artwork by Philip Tan, I believe. Yeah, so this is, now we're looking at the Rebirth era of Suicide Squad. So that's one thing to also keep in mind, is that Suicide Squad has been through different just incarnations. And this one's here drawn by Tony S. Daniel. And the character of Rick Flag, well, he's a little bit different than the character from John Ostrander's Rick Flag. And the same thing can be said about Deadshot, too. Just it's a different continuity, because in this particular version, we have a story from post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then post-Infinite Crisis, post-Flashpoint, and post-Rebirth. So realities tend to get a little confusing, but just enjoy it for what it is. I think these are damn good stories in here with some stellar artwork. And here's one by Stepan Sajic. Look at that. That is gorgeous. And I like the idea of just featuring different teams throughout the years for each of the stories. But this one here retails for $19.90. Or actually, no, this one's cheaper. This one's $12.99 and has a page count of 200 pages. And the paper quality of this is the matte paper, like the case files. Next up is Trial by Fire, Suicide Squad. Now, this is the newest and latest printing of this same trade paperback right here, Trial by Fire. This is the classic John Ostrander series. This is the third printing of the same story with the same issues in here. Issues number 1 through 8 and the, the Secret Origins number 14. But let's go ahead and crack this open. So this is the classic Luke McDonnell, John Ostrander, Bob Lewis story arc. And it all kicks off with the Secret Origin of the Suicide Squad in Secret Origins number 14 right here. So in this, you get to meet the team, you get to meet, well, some of the team, you get to meet Rick Flag, you get to find out that the Suicide Squad was actually a team back in the Silver Age. and that's where the name comes from. And Rick Flag's father was part of that team. However, Rick Flag is a different type of character. And then this is a completely type of team. This is Task Force X. This is a team of, I don't want to say rehabilitating villains, because some of them don't want to get fixed, but for the most part, some of them do want help. Or some of them sign up to be part of the Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad, because she has something on them. The beauty of this is that this is where it all begins. Yes, there was a Silver Age book, there was a Silver Age omnibus, but this is what the movie is based on. This is loosely what the movies are based on. This is where a lot of the characters come from. This is where Captain Boomerang, Rick Flag, Deadshot, Bronze Tiger, Bronze Tiger didn't make it in the movie. All these characters made their big Suicide Squad appearance here. Now, I will say this volume right here, though, is a little bit of a slog, because I think most people, this is one of my most wanted omnis, but when most people talk about John Ostrander's run on Suicide Squad, we give it high praises, and it rightly deserves it. It's a wonderful series. However, the very first few issues, I think both the artist and the writer were trying to figure out exactly who these characters were. So it's a little bit different. Like, it doesn't become a masterpiece until a little bit later. But you do get a really good issue, and it's in issue number 8, which I'll talk about here in a second. This printing is $19.99, and this has 232 pages. But issue number 8, right here, Personal Files, is one of the best comics that came out of the Suicide Squad. So it's pretty much their therapist breaking down what makes each one of the team members work. And there's a lot of misunderstanding with the character of Rick Flag because of the portrayal of the movie. And there's nothing wrong with the Rick Flag in the movie. He gets the job done for a movie. But the character's so complex in the comics. He's like a mix of Nick Fury and Captain America. That's what he reminds me of. Trying to do the right thing. And then Amanda Waller. Like, everywhere you see Amanda Waller, she is a stone cold bitch. But there's a reason for that. There's a lot of sadness in that woman. And issue 8, I think, at first gives you a small glimpse of all of their weaknesses. How each of these characters have a weakness. And I absolutely think this is one of the best issues. If you can make it this far, you'll see where the stories can go. It reminds me of New Mutants. X Factor number 87, for those that have read X Factor and find such a great story in there. And let's go to the next volume, Suicide Squad, Casualties of War. First time being reprinted. I don't think this was ever printed in a trade paperback collection. And this is the 2001 series, so this is written by Keith Giffen. This collects issues of Suicide Squad 1 through 12. That's all it was known as. And drawn by Paco Medina. And I remember this being some of the earliest Paco Medina artwork that I saw. And it reminded me a lot of Humberto Ramos. Very cartoony, very anime influence, but I dug it. It did the job. So this particular series is a lot different than the rest of the Suicide Squad. Think some old school, like Deadshot there, some old school team members do show up from time to time, but it is a brand new team. And it's all led by Sergeant Rock, who's now a general. So all of this takes place after the big crossover that started with Superman, Our Worlds at War. So General Rock is back in the DC universe, and he has put together a team of Task Force X. So a new Suicide Squad for the new generation. Now, this book has 296 pages and retails for $29.99. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about as I flipped through some of this artwork in here is what makes this book so good. Why do I enjoy it so much? Why do I want John Ostrander's run collected in an omnibus format? And the formula is simple. You take a bunch of B, C, D-list villains from the DC universe, put them together in a team as a Suicide Squad, make them work for the government, and then send them out on suicide missions. Not all of them make it. So forever, it's a revolving door of characters. But what John Ostrander did, and then a few others after him, of course, was make you care about some of these B, C, D, hell, sometimes E list type of villains. And when they are off, or when they die, or when they leave the team, or something horrible happens to them, you do feel for them. It's the same formula that Marvel did with Thunderbolts. It's the same formula that Peter David, to an extent, took with him to X-Factor. You have a bunch of lesser-known mutants and make you fall in love with them. And that's what this is. And part of that had a lot to do with Ostrander's run in Suicide Squad. And then it all started here in Trial by Fire. So that's it. That's the gimmick. And it works. Every incarnation of the Suicide Squad is the same thing. Suicide mission, let's get a bunch of villains together and send them out. And, you know, we'll probably lose a few, but who cares? They're just a bunch of villains. Out of all these books, if you've never read Suicide Squad, which one do I recommend? I 100% recommend Their Greatest Shots. While it's not one continuing story in here that's collected, it collects really some of the best Suicide Squad stories that kind of give you an idea of who these characters are and what they're willing to do. Of course I want to recommend the Suicide Squad because I'm a completist and I want you to go back to the beginning and start from the beginning where I did. But if you want a small taste as to what these characters on the big screen are like in their comic book counterparts, and especially not just the old stuff in here, but some of the new stuff, then yeah, absolutely go for Their Greatest Shots. And it's also the cheapest book out of all 5 of these. In no way should you be reading Casualties of War as your first Suicide Squad book, but, you know, who am I to stop anybody from doing so? But that, as they say, is that. This episode is sponsored by CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely in an excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for your Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collections. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up, if you're going to go for the classic Trial by Fire by John Ostrander, or if you just want a small taste of what the Suicide Squad is. If you have any more questions, please leave them down below. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy, stay safe out there. Much love.